the Father and the Son, right, creating the world. And God knew before Jesus was even born what he was going to do. He was going to be slain. His sole mission on earth was to come to this world, throw himself to the wolves, to jealous wolves, and in this give his life for mankind, lay down his life, though he could have clipped his fingers like that, and 10,000 legions of angels could have come to his rescue. Well, why not just clip your fingers and God send 10,000s and thousands and thousands, millions even? There are millions and millions of angels out there that could have come to Jesus's rescue. But Jesus choosing to throw himself to the wolves. And so all of this ordained, planned before the foundation of the world, Jesus giving his life before the very foundation of the world. So here we all are, here's King David, and he's acknowledging God created him in the womb. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in thy book, your picture here must be the book of life. There's a difference between the book of life and the Lamb's book of life. We are all, in this sense, in the book of life, that we're in the book of life before we're even created. God, in this sense, writing down in this book who and what you are going to be and what you are going to do, and coming to this earth and everything else. So all of your members, whether you're male, female, your arms, your eyes, your legs, and everything else, all written down in this book. And so you have your picture. Surely this must mean the book of life. And you're in the mind of God before you were conceived of in the womb. And then God writing all of this down in a book. So thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect. And in thy book, all my members were written, right? You've got arms, legs, you're male or female. Which in continuance, right? So which in continuance, once you were conceived of in the womb, there's a process that starts there. There's a continuance. And slowly but surely, after 9 months, a baby is formed. So, and in thy book, all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, right? So you were fashioned to be male, female, and whoever you God designed you to be in the womb. Don't forget, Jesus was also designed by God in the womb, right? So, and which in continuance were fashioned when as yet there were none of them. So this bit at the end of it all, when as yet there were none of them. So God had all of this written down, and you were designed, let's say, fashioned before you were even conceived of in the womb, and were fashioned when as yet there were none of them. So there's nothing for God to work with other than his thoughts to begin with, and he fashions you and writes you down in a book, the book of life, and all your members are written in the book, who you are, what you're going to do, and everything else, whether you're male or female, what your mission was going to be on earth or not, what you would end up doing or not. God designing you in the womb, which in continuance were fashioned when as yet there was none of them. So before you were even conceived in the womb, God had written down in a book, in this sense, who and what you were going to be and what you were going to do. And so in this picture, within this framework of God's creation, what God would want from you, who you are meant to be, you have these choices, and God willing, you fall into God's plan and not your own plan. You do wonder. And many people these days losing their crown is the case of what God would want of you, what God would plan for you. And at the same time, you have your own thinking and thoughts and choices. and what you might plan or do yourself. And many people now losing their crowns. And so all of this going on in King David's life, and he in all of this choosing to yield to God, and eventually not losing his crown, but gaining the crown that God always meant him to have in his life in this world. So it's like we're born here, we're ordained here, and God has his plan for us here. But God also gives us choices within that plan. And hopefully we will all fulfill our mission that God would have in mind for us when he placed us here, when he fashioned us in the womb and wrote us down in the book and gave us the choice to fulfill our mission or to fail in our mission. So there is a purpose for you here. And God willing, God will do everything he can to bring you to your purpose and your mission in life. And King David was indeed yielding to God and fulfilled his mission on earth in becoming the king of Israel, and eventually Jesus born of the lineage of King David. So the plan of God is thought out even before you were conceived of here. And the plan of God even thought out even before Jesus came here. And so all of this falling into plan with God, and eventually Jesus leaving this world, and then going back to the Father after fulfilling his mission here. And so it's good to end here with the mission of Jesus Christ, who indeed fulfilled his mission on earth. For God so loved the world, it says, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Now, God gave Jesus to the world, and Jesus fulfilled his mission on earth. And his ultimate climax of Jesus' life was to give his own life for our life. And so, but as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, nor of blood, but of God. And the word, it goes on to say, was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory as the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So grace here meaning God, if we believe in Jesus, then and accept God's gift of Jesus giving his life for us, then we too can enter into the spirit and presence of God, as Jesus pointed to in his life, and in giving his life for our life, then we can believe in Jesus, take Jesus into our hearts, and get back to go to the Father as Jesus did. And so Jesus, you picture here, he's fulfilling his mission on earth. He knows he's going to give his life for the sheep. Greater love of no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So Jesus now, he's kind of now at the end of his life, he's saying goodbye to his disciples, and he's saying, you know, he knows what's going to happen to them. The world's going to trash them. So he says, let not your heart be troubled. Now Jesus is leaving, he's telling them, he's saying goodbye. He knows that it's come to the climax of his mission on earth, and he's about to lay down his life for his friends, give his life to the wolves, to the jealous leaders, and throw his life even to what Satan would do with him being a jealous God, and jealousy being as cruel as the grave. So Jesus dying a cruel and merciless death at the hands of Lucifer and at the hands of the Pharisees in giving his life for his friends, for us. So let not your heart be troubled, he says. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. Now, mansions here meaning upgrade. It means if you've lived in a shack your whole life or some awful home, then you're in my Father's house. You'll have a better life in the next life, right, in God's house. In my Father's house are many mansions. So in other words, it's kind of like the mansions word here means an upgrade. It's a better home, a better place. And like I say, in London, it's interesting because they have these what's called mansion blocks. And lots of people these days, they have to get a home near their job. And if you work in London, then though you might dream of a mansion in the country, it's not practical. So, because you can't get to work every day, so sad to say, many people would love to live in a nice mansion, have to live near their job. And so, as a compromise here, they choose what's called a mansion block. And so you have this block of flats that they've turned into a mansion on the outside, and now it looks like a nice Victorian mansion on the outside, or an Edwardian design mansion. Now, inside that mansion block, there are all these very expensive apartments, and some of them costing millions even. So it's interesting, you see the symbolism brought out here in that Jesus is saying that in his house, right, he's going back to his Father. So we all need a house, we all need a home, somewhere to live. So he's going back to his Father, but he's saying to his disciples, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. So you have this house, the children of God, right? God's children being one family under God. And there's nothing better than the family all live together and get on. And so God has millions and billions, really, of his children down through the ages. And so in this sense, they're all going to live under one roof. So Jesus is saying, in my Father's house are many mansions. Now, interesting, like things that are created in this world are sometimes good illustrations of what's in the spirit world. The invisible things of him, right, God, are clearly seen, being understood by the things which are made. Now, like I say, it's very interesting to see the symbolism borne out here in this world. In a lot of things here are illustrations of things in the spiritual world. So block mansions, or mansion blocks as they're called, are interesting illustrations, can be used as an illustration of the same, of what Jesus is saying here. In my Father's house are many mansions, could so easily mean in my Father's house are many apartments. Much like the mansion blocks in London, where if you've got plenty of money and you need to live near your job, you might not be able to get to your house in the country, so you choose a nice a mansion block. You purchase a nice expensive apartment in that mansion, in that block mansion. And so in my Father's house are many mansions, many apartments, you do picture. Because in the book of Revelation, you have a picture of God's house there, and the saints of all ages living in this said house, which is called New Jerusalem. So it's really largely a house as big as a city, really, and all of God's children living under one roof in their house. And so you picture New Jerusalem coming down from God. John's seeing New Jerusalem coming down from God, he says, and it looks like a mountain. So a mountain is largely shaped like a pyramid. And so he sees, behold, the tabernacle of God is with man, it says. So God's tent. In the Old Testament, they used to wander around under Moses. They were wandering around in the wilderness a lot. And so they had a tent, which was where they would talk, where Moses would talk with God. And the tabernacle, as it was called. Now, it says in the book of Revelation, behold, the tabernacle of God is with man. So God bringing his tabernacle, his tent, so to speak, with him. And this tabernacle, this tent, coming down to earth on the new earth, a new heaven, new atmosphere, heavens, in other words, and a new earth. And this tabernacle of God, right, unlike Moses would carry this tabernacle around in the wilderness for 40 years. They were wandering around in the wilderness, and Moses would talk to God in this tabernacle, this tent. But now this tabernacle, this tent, so to speak, this New Jerusalem, which John said looked like a great and high mountain, so shaped like a mountain. And therefore you picture this New Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven. Behold, the tabernacle of God is with man. And all the saints of all ages are going to live in this tabernacle of God, which is called New Jerusalem. And then it gives a description of what this tabernacle of God, this New Jerusalem, looks like in the book of Revelation. So this is the in my Father's house are many mansions. And this New Jerusalem, in fact, is 1,500 miles high, it says, and 1,500 miles square. So square on the bottom, going up into a point and looking like a mountain. You picture a pyramid-shaped house where the saints of all ages are going to live, 1,500 miles high, 1,500 miles wide, and the saints of all ages living in this my Father's house are many mansions. So many mansions, many apartments, and 1,500 miles high, and many different levels. So Jesus going back to the Father here, let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions, many apartments, so to speak. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. So what's good for the goose here, Jesus, right, is also good for the gander. Jesus going back to his Father. And in my Father's, I go to prepare a place for you. There's a place for us in this New Jerusalem that God, what it says here, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. There's a place for you in his Father's house. So far from being trash in God's eyes, God has a place for all of us. And though we might be perceived of as being trash here, we are not going to be trash there when we finally leave this world. And Jesus comes back. I go to prepare a place for you, it says. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again at the second coming of Jesus, right? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again. There's going to be a second coming of Jesus Christ. And receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. And whither I go ye know, and the way ye know. Thomas saith unto him, Lord, we know not whither thou goest, and how can we know the way? Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So it's all through Jesus, by taking Jesus into our hearts, into our lives. We too will have a way back to the Father. And we too will have a way into God's house, into this house. In my Father's house are many mansions. You too will have an apartment, so to speak, in his Father's house. And when Jesus comes again and takes us back to his Father's house, there will indeed be a place for you in God's house. And so far from being a piece of trash in this world, in God's eyes, we are far from trash. So much so that God Jesus has prepared a place for us, that where I am, ye may be also. When we leave this world, we're going to indeed be with Jesus and with other saints of all ages in this great mansion that Jesus has created. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. He's telling us because it's so. He's not talking some kind of fanciful talk here. He's talking absolute reality. There is indeed a Father's house, and there is indeed a place for you in his Father's house. If it were not so, I would have told you. Why am I telling you things? They're not just words. They're reality, they're truth, they're real. It's not just idle talk or fanciful thinking. This is reality. I go to prepare a place for you. Jesus saying, I wouldn't be saying this if it wasn't so. That's why I'm telling you, because it's absolutely so. I go to prepare a place for you in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. So praise Jesus.